Long before the rise of empires and the birth of written history, there was a land where rivers sang through golden plains. It was not a kingdom or a nation, but something older, something shaped by water, sun, and silence. The world would come to know it as Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers. In the gentle glow of twilight, the Tigris and the Euphrates flowed like silver veins across the earth. These rivers were more than water. They were lifelines, carving through the dust, bringing green to brown, turning soil into gardens. Between their currents, the first great stories of humankind would be whispered into clay and stone. The evening air is soft. A warm breeze rolls across the plain, rustling the reeds that grow tall along the riverbanks. In the far distance, the low hum of frogs begins to rise as the sun sinks behind the horizon. Somewhere nearby, a herder hums to his animals as he leads them home, his bare feet brushing through dry grass. All around, the world slows, as if the land itself is preparing for rest. There were no cities at first, no kings or temples, no scribes or scrolls, only quiet clusters of families living in harmony with the seasons. People gathered to fish, farm, and survive, not as rulers, but as listeners of the land. These were the first steps of civilization, taken slowly with care. Mud brick houses clustered close to the water's edge, hearths glowing with soft firelight, children chasing each other barefoot through warm dust, their laughter carried gently by the wind. In this land, time moved differently. It was not chopped into hours and schedules, but flowed like the rivers, with bends and pauses and gentle returns. Days followed the rise and fall of the sun. Months followed the swelling moon. The people watched the sky and marked the seasons, not with clocks, but with the blooming of date palms and the rise of the floodwaters. When the rivers overflowed, the land turned dark and rich, and crops grew tall. Life returned in waves, and the people gave thanks in the only way they knew, through silence, offerings, and stories passed down like breath. They believed the rivers had souls. That water itself was sacred, a gift from the gods, or perhaps a god in its own right. In whispered prayers, they spoke to the spirit of the Euphrates, asking for gentle floods, for clean water to drink, for fish to return and stay. They offered small gifts, a handful of barley, a dried fig, sometimes a carved figurine, and placed them with care at the river's edge, letting the current take them. Farther inland, the flat land stretched wide like an endless golden canvas. Patches of green broke the earth like brushstrokes, and groves of trees offered shade and calm. Birds wheeled overhead, their cries distant but comforting, as if marking the edge of the world. Everything here moved with a rhythm, not rushed, not anxious, but steady, like breath. It was a land built for patience, for planting, for waiting, for listening. The earliest settlers did not call this place Mesopotamia. That was a name others would give it later, a Greek word meaning between the rivers. But to the people who lived here, it was simply home, a place of sun and shadow, of dust and water, of starlight and silence. The first homes were humble, built from clay and reeds, cool in the heat of day and warm at night. Those homes sat close to one another, their walls leaning into each other like old friends. Inside, pots rested in corners, filled with lentils, grains, and oil. Mats woven from palm fiber covered the floors, and above them, the scent of earth and ash mixed softly in the air. Outside, Small gardens offered mint and onions, and behind them, the fields stretched endlessly toward the rivers. As night begins to fall, the temperature cools. The dry heat fades, and a gentle breeze stirs through the village. The scent of baked earth rises, mixed now with that of fresh-cut wood and distant cooking fires. One by one, lamps are lit, small, flickering flames cradled in simple clay bowls. Their glow seeps through reed-matted windows and dances on the walls. Inside these homes, families gather close. They sit cross-legged, wrapped in soft woven blankets, sharing food and quiet stories passed down from voices long gone. Stories of how the world began, of how the rivers were born from tears of gods, of how the stars were once giant creatures who floated too high and froze into the sky. These stories were not written, not yet. They lived in memory, in song, in the sound of mothers' voices, soft and steady, in the rhythm of hands pounding grain, in the way the old ones spoke with silence between their words. But soon, in this very land, writing would be born, and those stories, once fragile and fleeting, would take shape in pressed clay. But for now, there is only the voice of the wind. The rivers murmur quietly in the dark, weaving their way through sleeping fields. The reeds sway gently, their long blades catching the silver of moonlight. A jackal calls out in the distance, not in warning, but as part of the nighttime song of Mesopotamia. Somewhere, a bird stirs in a tree, then settles again into stillness. Near the riverbank, a young boy lies down on a mat of woven palm, his head resting on his folded arms. His eyes are heavy, his body warm from the day's sun. He listens to the water, to the rustle of the reeds, to the deep quiet of the land. His thoughts drift like leaves on the river. Above him, stars begin to appear, slowly, patiently, one by one, blinking awake in the velvet sky. The same stars that will guide sailors, prophets, kings, and poets for thousands of years. This is how it all began, not with conquest or thunder, but with stillness, with people watching rivers, with breath and waiting, with a world made not of war and stone, but of earth, water, dreams, and sleep. Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, was first a cradle of rest, a place where the land whispered its secrets to the sky, and the sky answered with stars, a place where stories waited patiently to be told. And tonight, they are still waiting, just for you. Let the rivers carry you now. Let the soft pulse of ancient earth guide your breath. There is no hurry here, just the slow passing of time, the rhythm of water, and the hush of the world at the very beginning of everything. The stars still shimmer above the land between the rivers, but now the sky begins to lighten. The soft blue of early morning stretches across the horizon as night slowly gives way to day. In the distance, a new sound begins to rise, the quiet hum of a city awakening. This is not just any settlement. This is Ur, one of the oldest cities in the world, a place where mud and imagination turned into architecture, where stories turned into records, where human life became something more than survival. It became organized, ritualized, and remembered. The air is cool and still. Clay walls hold on to the night's chill, and the ground beneath bare feet is soft with dust. In the heart of the city, the great ziggurat of Ur rises into the morning sky. It is not yet alive with movement, but already it casts long shadows across the narrow streets. The temple stands like a mountain of man-made stone, not tall by modern standards, but monumental in meaning. It is a stairway to the heavens, built brick by brick, pointing toward the gods. Around the base of the ziggurat, the city stretches outward in rings. Homes made of baked clay cluster closely together, their rooftops flat and layered like steps. Some are quiet still, their doors closed against the night. Others begin to stir. A mother steps outside to fetch water from a nearby well. A child yawns as he feeds a sleepy goat. A potter opens his workshop, brushing dust from his tools. The city is waking, slowly, softly, as if it too is stretching after a long dream. Ur is more than homes and streets. It is a living map of early civilization. Narrow alleyways twist between dwellings. Open courtyards hold fig trees and fire pits. Markets prepare to open. The smell of grain and ash drifts gently through the air. Traders arrange baskets of dates, nuts, and barley. Bakers light their ovens. The world hums in a low, peaceful rhythm. At the center of this rhythm is something invisible, something new and powerful: structure, order. For the first time in history, people are not just gathering, they are organizing. They have roles, titles, and purpose. There are farmers who tend fields outside the city walls, scribes who record offerings in the temple, priests who watch the stars and whisper to the gods. Children learn from their parents, not just how to survive, but how to serve their place in something greater. The boy from the riverbank has grown. Now he wears a simple linen tunic and walks with calm purpose. He carries a flat tablet of clay and a small stylus carved from reed. He is learning to write, to press symbols into wet earth, not drawings, but signs. Each mark has a sound. Each sound has meaning. He is becoming a scribe. He walks into a shaded courtyard where other boys sit cross-legged on mats. Their teacher, an older man with tired eyes, nods to him silently. The lesson begins not with words, but with rhythm. The tap of stylus into clay, the slow shaping of lines and wedges. This is cuneiform, the world's first writing. It was born here, in Sumer, so that people could remember. And what do they remember? Not poetry, not at first, but numbers, trade agreements, lists of goods offered to gods, inventories of grain, taxes, ceremonies. These clay tablets are not dramatic, but they are revolutionary. For the first time, memory is no longer a matter of voice alone. It can be held in the hand, baked in fire, saved for generations. In the shade of the school, the scribe in training breathes slowly. He does not yet understand the power of what he's learning. He only knows that it matters, that the marks he makes are like seeds, planted now, blooming later. He glances upward. Above the school wall, he can see the temple stairs, leading upward to the sky. The temple priests are already moving. Clad in white, they light incense and chant softly to the morning sun. Their footsteps echo across stone. This is the domain of Enlil, god of wind and sky. They offer barley and sweet dates, wine and fragrant oils, not for favor, but for balance, to keep order between earth and heaven. Beyond the temple, in the marketplace, the city's life continues. Craftsmen trade their goods. A woman kneads bread with steady hands. Children play with carved animals in the dust. The sun rises slowly, casting soft light on the city's smooth rooftops. As midday arrives, the streets grow warm and quiet again. People rest in shaded rooms. Meals are shared: lentil stew, dates, flatbread. The breeze carries the sound of voices and the smell of spiced oil. Above all, there is peace. Not every day, not always, but for now, breathes in harmony with the land. Outside the city walls, farmers walk the canals, guiding water to their fields. The irrigation systems, dug by hand, measured with care, stretch across the land like veins. Water flows where once there was only dust. Barley ripens. Palm trees sway in the heat. And yet, beyond all this daily life, something deeper is forming. A shift in how people see the world. The rise of Sumer is not just the rise of cities, but of ideas, of writing, of trade, of shared stories, of something that will grow into law, art, science, and faith. As the sun begins to fall once more, the city of glows in the golden light. The walls catch the sunset. The river reflects it back. Shadows stretch long across the courtyards. The marketplace quiets. The streets empty. Once again, lamps are lit. Small flames dancing gently on windowsills and altars. In one of the homes near the temple, the young scribe sits with his family. He holds his clay tablet in his lap, running his fingers across the dry marks. His father listens as he reads them aloud, haltingly, carefully, translating signs into words, words into meaning. His mother smiles, placing a hand on his shoulder. There is pride in her eyes and peace in the room. That night, he dreams not of gods or battles, but of symbols, of lines and wedges forming thoughts, of stories being held, remembered, passed on. Outside, the stars begin to return. The great ziggurat of stands tall against the night, its upper terraces glowing with oil lamps. A soft wind moves through the city. The Euphrates whispers beyond the walls. The land is quiet once more. This is not the end of a day, but another beginning. For in in Sumer, something has awakened, something that will echo through every civilization that follows. Let your thoughts settle now, like dust on clay. Let the warm rhythm of the city fade into stillness. Let the memories of ancient streets and gentle voices carry you. There is no rush here, only the steady hum of time and the quiet rise of a world that once was and still lingers softly in the silence. The stars still shimmer over the rooftops of but the night no longer feels so dark. Tiny oil lamps flicker on terraces and windowsills. Their flames move gently in the breeze, like fireflies that have chosen to rest beside the living. The ziggurat stands tall, silent, and sacred, glowing softly in the moonlight. Though the city sleeps, the gods above never do. In Mesopotamia, the gods were not distant or abstract. They were present in everything, in the wind, in the river, in the growth of barley, and the cry of a newborn child. The divine was not far away. It lived in stone and storm, in dream and drought. Life and death, joy and illness were all part of a sacred rhythm that connected mortals to the skies above. And so the people built temples, not merely as monuments, but as bridges between earth and heaven. These were not places for crowds or sermons. They were homes for the gods themselves. Every city had its patron deity, and the temple was their dwelling place on earth. It was cleaned, maintained, and honored like a living presence, because to the Sumerians, it was one. As morning breaks, the temple priests rise first. While the city still lies in silence, they move through the lower courtyards of the ziggurat. Barefoot and dressed in linen, they wash their hands, faces, and feet. Purification before presence. Each movement is quiet, precise, as if the very act of waking is a prayer. The temple of Enlil in Nippur, or of Inanna in Uruk, or of Nana, the moon god, in Ur, each follows the same pattern, devotion through order. Offerings are prepared, vessels of barley and oil, platters of fruit and bread, incense made from precious resins. Not because the gods need to eat, but because humans need to give. In the highest chamber of the ziggurat, where only the chief priest may enter, the air is heavy with sacred stillness. No sound but the hush of footsteps on baked brick. No light but the filtered glow of the rising sun. The room is not filled with gold or grandeur, only with care. A statue of the god stands on a pedestal, dressed and oiled each day as if alive. To look upon it is to meet the presence of the divine. The gods of Mesopotamia were many, each with their own role, their own city, their own story. There was Anu, god of the sky, father of the heavens; Enlil, god of air and storms, who held the power to bless or destroy; Enki, a god of water and wisdom, who whispered secrets into the flow of rivers; Inanna, radiant and fierce, goddess of love and war; and Nana, the soft light in the sky, the moon god who guided the tides of time. Each god had a symbol, a story, a sacred animal. Their myths were not always peaceful, but the temples were. Here, among carved walls and cool corridors, silence ruled, not out of fear, but reverence. To speak in the temple was to speak with weight. Every whisper carried upward, as if the very bricks listened. Children were taught the names of the gods before they could write their own. Each festival was aligned with a deity, each ritual with the seasons. When a child was born, the family gave thanks to Nintu, goddess of life. When crops failed, prayers rose to Adad, god of rain. When stars shifted in the sky, the priest consulted the tablets, clay records of omens, eclipses, and heavenly signs, to understand the gods' messages. And yet, for all the grandeur, the gods were not distant, they were everywhere. In every household stood a small shrine, often just a niche in the wall with a figurine or carved seal. Before meals, people would nod toward the fire, or the door, or the sky, offering a moment of silence, a breath of gratitude. To live in Mesopotamia was to live surrounded by the sacred. In the temples, scribes worked alongside the priests. They wrote down dreams and visions, laws and omens, myths and prayers. Each tablet was pressed with care, the stylus clicking gently into soft clay. These tablets were stored in temple libraries, quiet rooms where wisdom was protected like treasure. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the hymn to Inanna, the Enuma Elish, all first lived in places like these, written by hands that believed every word mattered. Now, as the day warms, the temple becomes a place of quiet motion. Servants sweep the courtyards. Water is poured along the ground to settle the dust. Birds land on the edges of the roof, tilting their heads as if listening. A soft breeze moves through the hallways. The sound of the city hums faintly in the background, but within the temple walls time seems to slow. For the priests, each day is sacred. The stars of the night are studied. The movement of the moon is tracked. Dreams are recorded, interpreted, and stored. The gods, they believe, speak in symbols, and it is their duty to listen. On certain nights, festivals light the city with gentle joy. Torches burn along the streets. People sing songs to the gods. Dancers move in circles around the temple courtyard. Bread and beer are shared in celebration. But even then, when laughter fills the air, there is a sense of sacredness. The joy is not wild, it is warm, respectful. The gods are honored not just with fear, but with gratitude. As evening comes, the temple returns to silence. The last offerings are made, the lamps are lit. A priest places a bowl of fresh water before the god's statue. It will stay there all night, a symbol of purity, reflection, and life. The doors are closed. The echoes fade. Outside, the city winds down once more. The streets empty. The stars begin to rise. Families gather near their household altars. They whisper prayers for sleep, for protection, for dreams that might carry a message. They thank the gods for the day, for the river, for the grain, for the breath in their lungs. Somewhere in the temple, a single flame continues to burn through the night. A quiet light in the darkness. A symbol that even while the world sleeps, the gods remain. And so the night deepens. The ziggurat stands in shadow. The wind returns to the reeds. The moon rises gently over the rooftops of Ur and Nippur and Eridu and Uruk. The gods above look down, not from faraway heavens, but from the very sky that holds the dreams of their people. Let your body rest now. Let your breath slow. Imagine the soft light of the oil lamp flickering in a temple chamber. Imagine the scent of incense and warm clay. Imagine the hush of sacred walls, the silence between the stars. There is peace here. There is order. There is story and meaning in every grain of dust. Let it all surround you. Let it all fade gently into sleep. The gods are watching. The land is listening. And the sky is full of calm. The night is quiet once more. The stars stretch across the sky like silver threads woven into the deep velvet of sleep. Far below, in the land between the rivers, another story waits, older than most, and soft as the wind that moves through the reeds. This story begins in a great city. Not Ur, not Nippur, but Uruk, the city of walls, of temples, and of kings. And it begins with a man whose name would be carved into clay and carried through time, Gilgamesh. He was no ordinary man. He was a king, but also something more. 2/3 God, the people said, and 1/3 mortal. His strength was unmatched, his courage legendary. And yet even Gilgamesh could not escape the gentle truth that wraps itself around every living thing, the truth of change, of loss, of time. When Gilgamesh was young, he was wild and restless. He built great towers and walls for his city, but he ruled with a heavy hand. The people of Uruk prayed to the gods, asking for someone to balance their king, someone strong enough to stand beside him, but gentle enough to calm his storms. The gods answered with a dream. Far from the city, in the quiet heart of the wilderness, a man named Enkidu was born of clay and spirit. He lived among the animals, drank from the rivers, and ran with the wild herds. His hair was long, his skin sun-darkened. He had never known cities, never spoken a word, yet his heart was wise. When the two finally met, it was not as enemies, but as equals. Gilgamesh and Enkidu wrestled at the city gates, testing each other, not just with strength, but with soul. And when they stood, breathless and still, something new passed between them, a quiet understanding. From that moment on, they were no longer alone. Their friendship was like a river after drought, deep, rushing, and full of life. Together, They wandered far from Uruk. They crossed deserts and mountains, fought creatures from myth, and carved their names into the memory of the world. But even in their triumphs, a shadow lingered, soft and slow and certain. One day, Enkidu fell ill. It began with weariness, then fever, then silence. Gilgamesh sat beside him, day after day, unable to lift him from the edge of death. He who had defeated monsters could not defeat the stillness that crept over his friend. Enkidu, the wild one, the gentle one, was returning to the clay from which he came. When Enkidu died, the world grew quiet in Gilgamesh's heart. He wrapped his friend's body in fine cloth. He built a tomb with his own hands. And when the last stone was placed, something inside the king shifted. For the first time, he felt the weight of time, the softness of endings, the hush of the unknown. He looked at his own hands, strong, scarred, and trembling. If even Enkidu could fall to dust, then what of him? So Gilgamesh left Uruk. He wandered into the far places of the earth, searching not for gold or glory, but for something quieter, immortality, a way to live forever, a way to escape the silence. He crossed oceans and deserts. He climbed mountains and passed through darkness. He met wise beings and ancient spirits. One of them, Utnapishtim, told him the story of the great flood, how the gods once swept the earth clean with water, and how a man had survived by building a great boat. That man, Utnapishtim, had been granted eternal life, but not because he asked for it, because he accepted what he could not change. Still, Gilgamesh begged. He had walked too far, lost too much. Was there not a way? Utnapishtim gave him a test to stay awake for 7 days, but Gilgamesh, exhausted, fell asleep. For the first time in weeks, his eyes closed and he drifted into dreams. When he woke, he realized that even kings must rest, even heroes must sleep. As he left, Utnapishtim offered one last gift, a plant from the bottom of the sea, a plant that could restore youth. Gilgamesh dove deep and found it. He held it in his hands, soaked and sacred, but on his journey home, he stopped to rest, and while he slept, a snake crept by and carried the plant away. When he awoke, the plant was gone. He did not rage. He did not scream. He simply sat beneath the sky and let the truth wash over him like river water. The plant, the quest, the endless running, none of it had changed the one truth he had feared. But now, something else lived in him. He returned to Uruk, not as a conqueror, but as a man. He stood before the gates of his city and looked at what he had built. The walls, the temples, the people. He smiled, not with pride, but with peace. For he understood now that immortality is not in the breath we hold, but in the lives we touch, in the names we pass down, in the stories told beside small fires, under quiet stars. And so, the tale of Gilgamesh was written, pressed into soft clay by gentle hands. The oldest story ever found, not of war or victory, but of love, loss, and the beauty of being human. Now, as you rest, let that story hold you. Let Gilgamesh and Enkidu walk with you through the gardens of memory. Let the rivers of Mesopotamia carry their tale through your thoughts like water flowing over smooth stones. Imagine the stars above Uruk. Imagine the hush of the temple. Imagine the stillness of sleep, where no kings rule and no time passes. You are safe now. You are far from the desert, far from the search. There is no more striving, No more running, just the breath in your chest, the story in your heart, and the quiet night that wraps around it all. The tale has been told. The king has returned home, and you may rest. The air is still, the lamps are lit, and above the worlds the stars awaken one by one, scattered like soft memories across the endless night. Somewhere, far from the sleepy villages of Sumer and the fading songs of Uruk, a great city glows beneath the dark sky. Its name is whispered even now through time and silence: Babylon. Babylon did not rise in haste. It grew like a tree, slowly, deliberately, fed by rivers, wisdom, and wonder. Nestled along the Euphrates River, it became a place where minds stretched far beyond the horizon. A city not just of buildings and bricks, but of questions, of symbols, of stars. As twilight deepens, the streets of Babylon begin to quiet. The day's markets close. The scent of clay and date bread lingers in the warm air. Gentle laughter drifts from open courtyards. Yet above the rooftops, a different kind of light begins to shine. Soft, silent, ancient. In the temple of Marduk, Babylon's patron god, a group of scribes sits in a high chamber. Their mats are laid out in a wide circle. In the center rests a polished bowl of water, reflecting the sky through a hole in the roof above. The priests watch its surface, where stars ripple gently on water. They do not speak. They do not need to. They are listening, not with their ears, but with their stillness. The Babylonians believed that the sky was a scroll, written not with ink, but with starlight. They read it patiently, night after night. They recorded its patterns, its moods, its secrets. They noticed when Venus rose early, or when the moon lingered low. They tracked eclipses, comets, the dance of the planets. And slowly, they began to understand. The sky was not chaos. It was a message. To them, the stars were not distant fire. They were divine signs. Lights left behind by the gods to guide those below. Each constellation had meaning. Each movement, a whisper. A king might ask, "Should I go to war?" The scribes would answer, not with guesses, but with the language of the heavens. Even now, as you listen, imagine that you are lying on a warm rooftop in ancient Babylon. The clay beneath you is soft with heat from the day. The air smells of river water and burning oil. The stars above are brighter than you've ever seen, sharp, quiet, and endless. A young boy beside you points upward. "That is the bull," he says, tracing the horns of Taurus. "And there, that is the lion." You follow his finger, your breath slow and calm. He explains how each star returns in its season, how the gods walk across the sky in careful steps. You listen, and time begins to stretch. You are no longer in the present. You are in the rhythm of the stars, a rhythm older than memory, deeper than thought. But Babylon was not only a city of star watchers. It was a place of law, of order, of ideas made solid in stone. Centuries before, a king named Hammurabi ruled here. He carved his words into a tall black pillar, laws written not for the gods, but for the people. The Code of Hammurabi, they called it. Nearly 300 laws, set down in cuneiform, etched into basalt for all to see. It was one of the first written legal systems in human history. The code spoke of justice, of trade, marriage, theft, and honesty. If a builder builds a house and it collapses, it said he must pay the price. Fairness, responsibility, In truth, these were not abstract ideals. They were written into the walls, into the temples, into the hearts of Babylon's people. By day, Babylon was full of voices, judges, merchants, farmers, scribes. But by night, the city breathed differently. It was quieter, more thoughtful. The river shimmered like glass. The towers reached upward, as if listening to the sky. It was a time for dreams, for stars, for questions too large for the daylight. Among the rooftops and gardens, astrologers kept watch, not to predict the future with certainty, but to read the mood of the heavens. A dark moon might mean caution. A red star might call for patience. Their observations were recorded carefully in rows and columns, carved into clay with delicate hands. These tablets were stored in libraries, vast collections of knowledge, organized and preserved. In Babylon, learning was not a luxury, it was a duty. The gods, they believed, had given wisdom to humanity not to hoard, but to share. And so the scribes wrote. They wrote about medicine, remedies made from herbs and honey. They wrote about math, how to divide land, how to calculate the passage of time. They wrote poetry, prayers, and records of kings. But above all, they wrote about the sky. The Babylonian star catalogs were among the oldest scientific records in the world. These astronomers could predict lunar eclipses with astonishing precision, not because they used telescopes, but because they listened, they observed, and they waited. There was beauty in this patience, in this willingness to be still. In Babylon, time was not something to chase. It was something to respect. The stars did not hurry, neither did the scribes. As the hours passed, the sky turned slowly overhead. The constellations continued their eternal walk, and below, the people of Babylon dreamed of gods, of justice, of faraway places. Some dreamed of the stars themselves, sailing through the heavens like silent boats. Others dreamed of past lives, or of loved ones lost. But all slept beneath the same sky, watched by the same lights. The temple courtyard, once alive with voices, now rests in silence. A final offering has been placed, a small bowl of milk, a handful of dates, a single whisper to the moon. The priest steps back, bows, and disappears into the shadow of the colonnade. The wind is gentle now. It moves through the palm trees and across the rooftops, carrying with it the scent of night. Somewhere, a water wheel creaks. Somewhere, a musician plucks the last note of a lullaby. And in a small garden, a child stares up at the stars, wondering if the gods are listening. They are, not with ears, but with presence, not with answers, but with stillness. The same stillness that lives in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the soft drift of your thoughts. Let that stillness hold you now. Let the wisdom of Babylon, the laws, the stars, the silence wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let go of questions. Let go of time. You are safe, and the world is at rest. The stars do not rush. The river does not hurry, and neither should you. Sleep now beneath the same sky that watched over Babylon. Let the heavens turn above you. Let your breath slow. Let your dreams carry you, not forward, but inward, to the quiet center of all things. The scribes are sleeping. The fires are low, and the stars still shine. The night is deeper now. The stars have completed their slow turning. The world lies still, wrapped in the gentle breath of darkness. In the distance, the rivers still murmur, the Tigris, the Euphrates, flowing as they always have, even as the cities they once fed grow quiet and old. Mesopotamia does not end with fire, nor with a cry. It ends like a whisper, a candle slowly flickering, not because it is blown out, but because the oil has burned through. There was no single moment when the great cities fell, no thunderclap, no collapse that shook the world. Instead, time passed, seasons shifted, waters changed their course, and slowly the cradle of civilization began to rest. Uruk faded. The high towers of Ur crumbled. The ziggurats of Nippur stood empty beneath the weight of sand and wind. The priests grew fewer, the scribes quieter. The clay tablets, once pressed with fresh thought, began to gather dust. But before they were forgotten, they were buried, carefully, lovingly, stored in jars, hidden in libraries, sealed in darkness. And there they waited, silently, for thousands of years. Outside, the desert crept forward. The rivers shifted. Empires rose, Assyria, Persia, Rome. New gods came, new languages. But under the surface of the earth, Mesopotamia slept. The people moved on, but the land remembered. Sometimes, a shepherd would stumble across a carved stone, a pot, cracked with age, a fragment of a tablet covered in strange marks. They would wonder who had lived here, who had spoken this language, built these walls, drawn these lines in wet clay. And centuries later, those questions would awaken once more. In the 19th century, long after the last priest of Enlil had walked his final path, the sands of Mesopotamia stirred again. Archaeologists began to dig, carefully, respectfully. They uncovered walls, temples, tools, and stories. So many stories. They found the ruins of Ur and the great ziggurat rising from the sand. They found tablets in heaps, thousands of them, covered in the wedge-shaped symbols of cuneiform. They brushed them clean. They studied them. And slowly, the voices of the past began to return. It was as if the land itself had been waiting for someone to listen again. The Epic of Gilgamesh was pieced together from broken tablets found buried beneath Nineveh. The laws of Hammurabi rose again, etched in stone for modern eyes to read. Star maps, healing recipes, prayers to the moon, all emerged from the earth like seeds sprouting after centuries of sleep. And so Mesopotamia did not die. It transformed. It became memory, wisdom, and echo. Now, when we speak of writing, of calendars, of cities and stories, we trace our steps back to the land between the rivers, back to those who watched the stars and whispered to the wind, back to those who pressed symbols into clay, never knowing that thousands of years later, someone would still be listening. Tonight, as you rest, you carry part of them with you, not just in facts or names, but in the rhythm of your breath, the shape of your thoughts, the desire to know, to wonder, to tell stories beneath the stars. You do not need to remember every name, not Ur, not Babylon, not Gilgamesh or Enkidu. What matters is the feeling, the quiet peace of knowing you are part of something ancient, something that stretches far behind you and far ahead, like a river. Imagine now that you are walking once more beside the Euphrates. The night is warm. The reeds sway softly in the breeze. The stars above shine in the same patterns they did so long ago. You walk barefoot through the dust, your steps light, your heart calm. You pass the ruins of a temple, its stones covered in moss, its door open to the wind. Inside, the silence is deep, but it is not empty. It holds memory. You sit for a moment, placing your hand on the floor, feeling the coolness of the stone, and you understand something, not with words, but with stillness, that nothing is truly lost, that everything leaves a mark. Even now, the rivers remember, the earth remembers, and so do you. Let that comfort you. Let it carry you like water in the night. As you drift into sleep, imagine Mesopotamia not as a place of ruins, but of beginnings, of light reflected in clay, of voices in wind, of dreams that became memory, and memory that became story. The land between the rivers may no longer rise with ziggurats or echo with temple chants, but its spirit flows quietly through time, through thought, through wonder, through you. You are not alone in your dreams tonight. You are sleeping in the same rhythm that once cradled kings and scribes, farmers and poets, the same rhythm that guided starlight onto tablets and carried prayers up temple stairs. You are breathing with the memory of the world. The story is not over. It never ends. Sleep now, wrapped in the silence of ancient stone. Sleep under the sky that watched the first stories take shape. Sleep beside the river that still flows, gently, softly, endlessly, through time.